You believe in God, but when was the last time you actually listened to him? This story might hurt, but it could revive your faith. Samuel had 3 Bibles, one on the shelf, collecting a fine layer of dust, a testament to intentions long past. One in his drawer, buried beneath old papers and forgotten keepsakes. One on his phone, an app lost among dozens of others for work, social media, and entertainment. Yet, none of them were open. The digital Bible had 0 screen time, and the physical ones hadn't been touched in months, maybe even years. He hadn't stopped believing in God, not consciously anyway. The idea of God was still there, a comforting, abstract concept in the back of his mind. But he just got busy. He got busy chasing life, chasing success, chasing the next big thing that promised fulfillment. The world was loud, demanding, and relentless, and Samuel was determined to conquer it. Hustle came first. It was the mantra of his generation, the gospel he preached to himself in the mirror every morning. Early starts, late nights, weekends spent hunched over a laptop, fueled by caffeine and the intoxicating thrill of closing a deal. His business was his temple, and profit was his prayer. He was building an empire, brick by digital brick, and it demanded his absolute, undivided attention. Sleep came next, a necessary but often begrudged interruption. It was a biological tax he had to pay to keep his mind sharp and his body moving. He collapsed into bed, mind still racing with figures, strategies, and anxieties, only to be jolted awake by an alarm that seemed to mock his exhaustion. And God came when there was time, which, increasingly, was never. He was an appointment Samuel kept rescheduling, a call he kept meaning to return, a relationship he'd get back to once things settled down. But things never settled down. The more he achieved, the more there was to do, to protect, to grow. Sunday services, once a non-negotiable part of his week, became optional. He'd wake up, glance at the clock, and justify skipping with a litany of excuses. I'm too tired, I have a deadline, I can just listen to a podcast later. The podcast was never listened to. Prayer, once a heartfelt conversation, became rushed. It was a hurried mumble in the car, a quick thank you before a meal, or a desperate please help when a client was on the verge of pulling out. It was a transaction, a spiritual vending machine where he inserted a token of acknowledgement and hoped for a favorable outcome. Faith, the bedrock upon which he had once built his life, became background noise. It was a faint, distant melody, drowned out by the cacophony of ambition, deadlines, and the constant, buzzing notifications from his phone. He was living on the fumes of a faith that had once been a blazing fire. Then one night, the carefully constructed scaffolding of his life came crashing down. Everything collapsed. A major business deal, one he had poured months of his life into, the one that was supposed to be his magnum opus, fell through at the final hour. A partner backed out, citing market instability. It was a devastating blow, a domino that set off a catastrophic chain reaction. The expected income vanished, but the bills waited for no one. Rent, payroll, supplier invoices, they were a stack of menacing envelopes on his desk, each one a stark reminder of his failure. The confidence he had worn like armor crumbled, and fear returned. It was an old, familiar enemy, a cold dread that seeped into his bones, whispering of ruin and disgrace. For the first time in years, Samuel felt truly, utterly empty. The success, the hustle, the accolades, they all felt like a hollow echo in the vast, silent cavern of his despair. The empire he had built was a house of cards, and a single gust of wind had brought it all down. That night, in the sterile silence of his expensive, empty office, a wave of frustration and anger washed over him. He wasn't just sad, he was furious. At his partner, at the market, at himself, and at the God he felt had abandoned him. In a fit of desperate, almost childish defiance, he went home, walked past the pristine living room, and into his dusty study. He grabbed the Bible from the shelf, the one that served more as a decoration than a guide. A small cloud of dust poofed into the air as he pulled it free. He held the heavy book in his hands, its weight a foreign feeling. He looked up at the ceiling and said, the words a raw, broken whisper, God, if you're real, speak. It wasn't a prayer of faith. It was a challenge, a last-ditch dare thrown into the void. With a sigh of resignation, he let the book fall open randomly on his desk. His eyes, blurred with exhaustion and unshed tears, fell upon the page. The verse talked about trusting God, not money. It spoke of a treasure in heaven that neither moth nor rust could destroy. It was a passage about seeking God's kingdom first, not the fleeting kingdoms of earthly success. It described a peace that doesn't come from a healthy bank account or a thriving business, a peace that surpasses all understanding. Samuel laughed. It was a bitter, hollow sound that echoed in the quiet room. Too late, he thought, slamming the book shut. The words felt like a cruel joke, a cosmic taunt. Where was this God when he was working 18-hour days? Where was this peace when his stomach was in knots over cash flow? He felt a surge of resentment. It was easy for an ancient text to talk about not worrying about money. It didn't have to make payroll. He pushed the book aside and tried to sleep, but the words were branded onto his mind. But the words didn't leave him. They followed him into a restless, dream-filled sleep. They were there when he woke up, a persistent whisper beneath the roar of his anxiety. The next day, he found himself drawn back to the dusty Bible. He opened it again. This time, it wasn't a challenge. It wasn't because he felt holy or righteous, far from it. He opened it because he felt completely and utterly lost. The maps he had used to navigate his life had led him off a cliff, and he had no idea where to go from here. He read another passage, and then another. The words were not a magic fix. They didn't make the bills disappear or restore the failed deal, but they did something else. They offered a different perspective, a different source of value. Prayer returned, not the frantic, transactional requests for money or success. It was different now. His prayers were quieter, more hesitant. God, show me the way. God, I don't know what to do. God, help me find peace. It was a prayer for direction, for wisdom, for an anchor in the storm that was his life. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, his heart began to change. The frantic energy of the hustle was replaced by a quiet pursuit of stillness. The obsession with his bottom line was tempered by a newfound concern for his soul. Months later, Samuel's business recovered. He managed to secure a new investor, restructure his debts, and slowly, painstakingly, rebuild what he had lost. From the outside, it looked like a great comeback story, a testament to his resilience and business acumen. But the real miracle wasn't the money. The real miracle happened on the inside. The real miracle was the peace. It was a deep, abiding calm that didn't fluctuate with his bank balance. It was the clarity that came from reorienting his life's compass toward something eternal. It was faith restored, not just as a belief system, but as a living, breathing relationship. He realized God never left. God had been there all along, in the unopened Bible, in the skipped services, in the rushed prayers. Samuel was just too distracted to listen, too busy shouting his own plans to hear God's whisper. Faith revived. God doesn't shout over your distractions. He waits for your attention. He waits for the moment you finally stop, listen, and open the book that has been collecting dust. If this story spoke to you, don't scroll past God again. Like, share, and subscribe for more faith-restoring stories.